Hello everyone, once again it is Zeri, Persian pen name on AO3. I'm here to read you stories and track my face and vocal changes while I'm on testosterone. It is week, what, 15? Something like that? I'm a couple days late this week, because my spouse and I have been awake at mostly the same time, which is slightly novel, and I always feel bad trying to, he doesn't want to be in these videos. He doesn't like being on video. And I don't want to kick him out of the room where we're both spending time, usually playing games together. It seems like a jerk thing to do. So let's see, what have I been doing this week? Lots of work. I work in hospitality. It's spring break. It's been hell. Is this falling off? Yeah. I have been so busy at work. You don't even know. And my boss is terrible, as I've mentioned before, so instead of having two humans on shift at the same time, as he is supposed to have, he just has me. So for my shift, it's me and housekeeping doing their thing, or it's me and maintenance is somewhere around until maintenance goes home, and then it's just me. So when there's a wedding party and the whole group rolls in at 9 or 10, drunk as shit, and the father of the bride is sick in the men's room on the first floor, it's just me. And the phone can be ringing off the hook because people are still looking for a room, and I'm trying to get things cleaned up, and it's just me. So, it gets busy. What else have I been up to? Oh, I decided to start another knitting project, because that is how I roll. Honestly, I should be doing my writing. There's a lot of works in progress that I've got going that I haven't been working on. Hiccup. There we go. But I've been doing this instead. Because you never know where your craft mojo will go. Sometimes it's in writing, sometimes it's in knitting. So I've got 3 skeins left of each of the yarns that I used for my sweaters for this year. I guess did it within 6 months, so I'm going to call it a year, even though there was a New Year's in between. So I'm going to see if I can get a sweater vest out of each of them. We'll find out. So I've got the top, front of the first one. And I'm working my way through the top back. Then when I get to the underarm section, I'll just start going in the round and keep going until I run out of yarn. That's my plan. So we'll see if I end up with a whole sweater vest or not. And if I don't, then, oh well. Maybe I'll give it to somebody with a shorter torso. Who knows? Maybe I'll pop some stripes in there or something. But that's what I've been working on. Let's see. Lots of feeding cows. We've got some new people that we're in contact with, because we don't have a trailer. So, we get them in the pens, and then we just gotta call somebody and wait for them to be available, to come round them up and get them into a trailer, and hope that too many don't escape the pens during the interim. Our pens are very, very old. Spouse's grandfather built them, and they are janky. So, pretty much every time that we collect cows, somebody breaks something. Because they're, 800 pounds and don't want to be in there. So, and then when you got a couple of guys trying to herd them down a narrow chute that's, just a little bit wider than it takes for them to go forward and not wide enough for them to turn around, yeah, they get mad and they throw that 800 pounds around. So that's what's been going on with my week. Oh, dyeing. I've been doing some more dyeing. Last week, after I made my video, I set up a walnut bath dye. I think I talked about it. Yeah, but I set up the walnut bath dye. It's about a week old now. The water looks pitch black, which is fantastic. I'm going to give it another 2 more weeks to keep fermenting and getting just super gross before I toss my shawl in there. It was really windy last night. I just went to take the dog out a bit ago, and the lid had flown off in all of the wind, so I had to go chase that down across the yard and put it back on and put like some bricks and bones and such up on top of it. Because again, it's just a big plastic tub full of water and a bunch of dried walnut hulls. Because I could have cooked them in a big old stock pot and probably have done the whole thing in a day, but that's a lot of work, and I am very lazy. And I could just let time do the work. The time's going to pass anyway. I've been thinking of... I spent a couple of hours earlier this week picking flowers that I thought were Coreopsis, which makes a really nice yellow dye. And I was going to, see what I could get from that. I got about, the better part of a gallon. I was just looking over at them. And I got all the way home and looked up my stuff again and realized I had not been picking Coreopsis. I had been picking Indian blanket, which are also yellow with an orange center, but have a much more prominent orange center, and I was just really excited. I was like, oh man, look at all the orange in there. I'm going to make a nice color. And then these are not a dye plant at all. And the only thing they could be used for would be some tea, but these are the ones that are growing right next to the road, and I don't want to use exhaust flowers for internal use. So they're just going to go into the compost pile, which is a shame. But and we went down to the pasture the other day, and the Coreopsis is blooming once I looked up again what they look like. Yeah, that's completely on me. But they're not blooming in such numbers that I can do anything with it. So I might just, I think I'm just going to order some. Like, I'll just order a bunch of the dried flowers, and, while I'm at it, I might pick up a couple of other dye stuffs. I've always wanted to try cochineal. We have cochineal out here on our cactus. But the amount of work that it would take to walk around all the cactus, find ones that have the white fluffy stuff on it, collect the bugs without getting pricked by the cactus overmuch, separate them from the white fluffy stuff. I guess, do you bake them? Do you just crush them? I don't... Anyway, the amount of work that it would take to get, like, 1 usable ounce would be insane. And I can get 2 ounces for $12, so I'm gonna do that. Because I value my time. And I've got a jar of the, like, pre-1970 something copper pennies that I used to make into a copper mordant. You fill the jar with vinegar and you wait like a month. So it's all dried out now, but I still have vinegar and the pennies still work, so I'll just fill it up full of vinegar and give it some time. I really want to see I want to get a nice blue-red if I can. Mordanting with copper tends to skew things blue. And from what I hear, a post-mordant with iron turns cochineal towards purple. So if I can use my copper pre-mordant and some iron post-mordant, then get a really nice purple color, that would be great. Because cochineal is really color fast. And that would be neat. And then I can get different shades out of it. And I've got so much undyed fiber and yarn and such that sacrificing some for experiments is not a problem. Yeah. So I'm probably gonna just order a bunch of dye stuff sometime soon and see what I get with that. But anyway, let's read some stories. So this one... This week I decided to read 2 stories by Janara. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Both of them are part of the BT Tower Telephone Group series. The first one is called The Dove and the Raven. The second is called Opera. They're both good omens. So this first one here, The Dove and the Raven, it's general audiences. It's a Noah's Ark, pre-relationship, hurt comfort, slow burn. So, give me one moment. Yes, this one's already been podpicked. No, I don't care. Well, no, that's a lie. I do care, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, The Dove and the Raven. Angel wings were not built for flight on Earth. They were made for soaring through the heavens, gliding on gusts of ethereal wind, carrying more by thought than effort. They were not meant to ache from exhaustion. His face pressed into the burning sand and he closed his eyes. He wasn't sure how long he had been flying, traveling over nothing but deep water. He had gone in the wrong direction, hadn't he? Somewhere along the way he always went wrong. They knew that there was land out there, had known already after his last flight. A small island, an olive tree just starting to grow. He had brought them a leaf, thought his task completed, but he had been sent out again. Maybe he should have taken on another form. But it had been fitting that it would be him to search for new land, to bring the tidings of hope. Just as it had been fitting that the raven had not returned. He grimaced, sharp fragments of quartz scratching against his cheek. He had found land at last, another island, but he didn't know where he was. He had been flying for so long, hadn't been sure by the end how he had kept himself airborne. His wings had strained and screamed at every movement, and when he had finally spotted the glistening speck of sand and foliage, it had been through misty eyes and he had let himself fall. He was not even sure if he had changed form mid-air or after the impact. Now he could rest at least, just for a bit. Just for a little while, before he must take to the air again. Angel wings were not meant for mortal bodies. They were meant for celestial beings that were not affected by physicality, that did not need to defy gravity. His wings were draped limply by his side and throbbed, deep and pounding and terrifying, like they would never have the strength to lift again. He dug his trembling fingers into the stinging sand. The heat was strangely grounding. A paradox. Earthbound was the last thing he wanted to feel right now. Something was here. He might blame his tightly shut eyes, or the haze in his mind for not noticing earlier. Something was approaching one of his wings. He sensed it just before it made contact. He flinched, skirted away, groaned, wrenched his eyes open and blinked away the sand. Tried to focus on the shade cowering beside him. A breath escaped him. How had he not recognized the presence? "Thought you left." A low hum. It washed over him like a wave. "You all right?" The shade settled into the sand. "Of course." His voice was raspy. He swallowed against his burning throat. There was no answer, just black robes in the outskirts of his vision. He thought about turning to his side, but did not dare to move his wings. Tried pushing himself up onto his elbows instead. A light brush of fingers against his shoulder stopped him. "May I?" He tried to resist for a moment, felt a frantic urge to hoist himself up, to look at Crawley. His arms shook and gave way underneath him. "May I?" the demon repeated, and the fingertips were back on his scapula. And oh, he should not allow it. He should not allow his adversary to touch him. He shouldn't accept what was offered here, but anything was better than the relentless, draining pulse hammering through his wings and echoing in his mind. He ground sand between his teeth and nodded. The first brush was like a ghost. He clenched his hands into fists, expecting an onset of pain. It never came. The demon's fingertips were cool and soft, leaving a soothing chill in their wake. A demon's touch should not feel like this. A demon's touch should scorch and harm and injure. It should not be gentle. He sighed and relaxed into the glimmering crystals beneath him, drinking in their warmth while smooth fingers were easing the tension out of his muscles. Then the hands became firmer, fingers digging in with just the right amount of force. He closed his eyes, allowing the tension to drain out, felt a different sort of pain. Little flares of punctuated pressure that eased the hardened muscles. "Thank you," he huffed. Crawley didn't answer, just went back to running his fingers over ruffled feathers, coaxing them into their proper position. With a last stroke along a primary, the demon drew away from him. Aziraphale pushed himself up onto his elbows once more, relishing the sensation of his spine realigning itself. He rolled his shoulders, then sat up, looking at the demon at last. "I meant it. Thank you." Crawley grimaced and shrugged. "Don't mention it. Know a thing or two about injured wings." He opened his mouth, but couldn't think of anything to say. Nothing that wouldn't sound condescending, or meaningless. He tried for a smile instead. Maybe Crawley would understand this way. "I thought you left," he said at last. The demon shrugged again, his gaze wandering out into the ocean. "I left them. Didn't fancy being a carrier pigeon." He huffed a slight laugh. "No, that was me in the end. Anyway, I don't think it would have been proper demonic work, would it?" Crawley glanced at him before looking back at the ocean. "No, probably not." He stood up, shaking sand from his robes. "Anyway, since you don't seem like to just discorporate just now, I'll be off. See if there are more islands out there." "Oh, yes, right." Aziraphale frowned as he watched Crawley stepping towards the shoreline. Take care." The demon glanced over his shoulder, something odd and almost warm in his eyes. Later, Angel. See that we meet under better circumstances next time. Then he took to the air. Angel wings were not meant for flight on Earth, Aziraphale knew, and demons were of the same original stock. Still, watching the dark figure soar above the azure sea, he thought it strangely beautiful. The end. I like that one a lot. So that's our first one. Where are we at? 20 minutes? That's fine. Lubricate the throat. So this one is titled Opera and Other Good Omens by Janara. Rated Gen. Post-canon. Short and sweet. Let's try to act cultured. Really, Angel, of all the dreadful things you could drag me to. Crowley heaved an exorbitant sigh. What, I thought you liked the funny ones. There's funny, and then there's that. The demon sneered at the stage, on which the convoluted plot of Les Nazes de Figaro did its best to unfurl. It struggled. The performers, while quite good at singing, sadly lacked the acting ability to carry the story with any sort of panache. Aziraphale did his best not to cringe with vicarious embarrassment and decided to focus on the lovely music and gorgeous costumes instead. Should have never let it slip that I like Mozart, came the disgruntled mutter next to him. His lips twitched. He couldn't help it. Crowley was so gloriously grumpy tonight. The sort of grumpy he liked to put on whenever he set out to be making a nuisance of himself. Aziraphale was rather fond of it. It was part of the demon's charm, although he would never let him know. Well, seeing that you like Mozart and prefer funny ones, I said I prefer Billy's funny ones. Aziraphale rolled his eyes at the diminutive, but leaned back into his cozy balcony seat and turned to look at the demon. A much nicer sight than the spectacle on stage, and he could still hear the music after all. So, which of Mozart's dramas would you pick, then? Oh goodness, I should not have picked something with foreign languages. Not the Schuldigkeit des Ersten und Vornehmsten Gebotes. I'm butchering that. If you ever dare taking me to that one, I will toss you over the balustrade. Crowley glared, and Aziraphale suppressed a warm smile while jotting down a mental note to see if the Schuldigkeit was still performed somewhere. The demon's sulk would be delightfully spectacular. What then? He said instead, his voice as angelic as ever. Always was partial to Apollo at Hyacinthus, actually, Crowley muttered, even though they should have kept to the original. Aziraphale hummed, thoughtful for a moment. Yes, I can see that. He noticed that his companion squirmed a bit and raised an eyebrow. Crowley, very intently and very pointedly, directed his attention back to the stage. Out with it, my dear. No clue what you're on about. Another one you like. Crowley huffed another sigh and slunk lower into his seat, mumbling something. What was that? Idomeneo. Oh my! Aziraphale could not keep his eyebrows from rising. He gazed at the demon, who in return kept his eyes fixed on the stage. How very— Don't! Crowley growled. Sentimental. That earned him a magnificent snort. Always liked this bit here. What? Aziraphale blinked, momentarily disoriented. Crowley nodded at the stage, where Cherubino was pleading with Susanna. Turned out rather well, that. Really shows up the hypocrisy of the ruling class. Aziraphale's eyes widened as he stared at the demon. There was that little, oh-so-familiar quirk in the corner of the frankly indecent mouth. You didn't, he gasped. The quirk quivered. Oh, you're having me on, He was still staring, trying to read the other's face in the dim light. "Look at you, picking up colloquialisms. I'm proud of you, Angel." Aziraphale could feel the amusement and self-satisfaction radiating from the demon. "You? Having a hand in all of this?" He waved his own hand at the stage. "Well, not this, obviously. This production is vile. Actually," the demon tilted his head, "if I was still on payroll, I'd definitely claim this as one of mine. Offense against good taste and all that." "Crowley," Aziraphale pressed on. "What?" Crowley finally turned his head to look at him. "You can whisper sweet nothings into dear Georgette's tender ears, but I can't have a chat or two with good old Amadeus." "I can't believe you." Aziraphale glanced back at the stage, where Cherubino had just been discovered by the Count. "Well, maybe I can." Out of the corner of his eye, he caught Crowley's cringe. "Yeah, not my best work. This scene was supposed to show how to turn a tricky situation into an advantage." Aziraphale raised an eyebrow at the stage. "That got rather lost in translation, I'm afraid." "It did in this production," Crowley hissed. They blinked simultaneously, as Cherubino somehow managed to get tangled up in Susanna's dress, the one she was wearing, and both performers toppled over. "I'm starting to see your signature, my dear." "Shut up." They were staring at the stage in silence for a while. "At least, the music is very nice," Aziraphale offered. "Yeah, they haven't mucked that up. Yet." They both heaved a sigh as the curtain closed on the first act. Aziraphale cleared his throat. If you don't mind, please say you've had enough of this and we can get out of here." "Kind of," Aziraphale admitted. "Splendid!" Crowley jumped up and held out a hand for him. Aziraphale took it and was immediately drawn in, relishing the low thrum and buoyant energy that emerged from the demon. It still felt new somehow, this freedom of being together in whatever way they pleased, but at the same time there was that lovely warm familiarity he could finally allow himself to revel in. "I was thinking," Crowley murmured as he wound his arm around his waist. "Yes?" "About plans for tomorrow evening." "Mm-hmm." Aziraphale couldn't keep himself from smiling. It was a problem that got more and more persistent around the demon. "There's this late-night reading of Heyer." Aziraphale froze. "Venetia, I believe." Aziraphale felt an uncomfortable heat spreading across his cheeks. "Better not." The grin Crowley gave him was beyond wicked. He would have considered it delicious had it been under any other circumstances. "Oh, most definitely, Angel. You're so on." The end. Oh, this one is also podpicked already. Well. And then I guess that'll be my theme for this week. Things that have already been podpicked. So yeah, I butchered the heck out of those names. Like, for real. I know nothing about opera. I've been to one showing of Carmen with my choir group back in high school. It was pleasant. They had a screen with translations for captions, so that was nice. But yeah, that's been my week. I'm gonna go play a lot of video games and get some rest, because tomorrow I gotta go right back into it. So many people, so much work. Alrighty, I will see you guys next week. Have fun, be safe, cause good trouble. See you later.